The sky was burning. Elder Kessa stood at the broken window of the great archive and watched her world die. Orange flames rose from the cities below. Black smoke covered the sun. The Valori homeworld, peaceful for 10,000 years, was now a graveyard. Kessa was old, even by Valori standards. Her feathers had turned white long ago. She had spent her life studying history, reading about ancient times when the universe was young. She never thought she would see her people destroyed. The Mokrai had come without warning. Their warships appeared in the sky 3 days ago. They did not ask for trade. They did not want peace. They wanted everything. The Valori had nothing to fight back with. Their ancestors had destroyed all weapons thousands of years ago. War was a forgotten word. Violence was something from old stories. Now those old stories had come back to kill them. A young Valori ran into the archive. His name was Fen, and he was a scout pilot. His blue feathers were covered in dust and ash. His eyes were wide with fear. "Elder Kessa, the evacuation ships are leaving. You must come now." Kessa did not move. She was looking at a machine in the corner of the room. It was ancient, covered in dust. Most Valori did not even know what it was. "Do you know what this is, young one?" she asked. Fen shook his head. "No, Elder. Please, we must go. The Mokrai are coming closer. This is a signal broadcaster. Our ancestors found it floating in deep space, long before I was born. It sends a message on a special frequency, a frequency that travels faster than light, faster than anything we know." Fen did not understand. "What kind of message?" "A cry for help." Kessa touched the old machine gently. "We never used it because we did not know who would answer. We were afraid. What if something terrible hurt us? What if something worse than the Mokrai came?" Outside, explosions shook the ground. Screams echoed through the burning streets. Fen grabbed Kessa's arm. "Elder, please!" Kessa looked at him with sad eyes. "We are already dying, young one. What could be worse than this?" She pressed a button on the machine. It hummed to life. Lights flickered on its surface. Kessa typed a simple message using mathematical symbols that any intelligent species could understand. "We are dying. We have no weapons. We cannot fight. Anyone who hears this, please help us. Please." The signal pulsed outward into the darkness of space. It traveled past the burning cities, past the Mokrai warships, past the moons and planets. It flew into the endless void between stars. Kessa did not know if anyone would hear. She did not know if anyone would care. But she had tried. That was all she could do. "Now we go," she said to Fen. They ran through the ruined streets together. Valori were everywhere, crying, screaming, trying to reach the evacuation ships. The Mokrai ground troops were already in the city. They were large creatures, covered in gray armor, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed red. They captured Valori and put them in chains. Those who resisted were killed. Fen led Kessa to a small ship hidden in an underground hangar. Other Valori were already inside. High Speaker Orin, the leader of their people, stood at the entrance. His golden feathers were dirty and torn. He looked like he had aged 10 years in 3 days. "Elder Kessa, thank the stars you are alive." Orin helped her onto the ship. "Did you send it, the signal?" "Yes, High Speaker. It is done." Orin nodded slowly. There was no hope in his eyes. "Then we have done everything we can. Now we run." The ship lifted off. Through the windows, the survivors watched their homeworld shrink below them. Fires covered entire continents. Mokrai warships hung in the sky like evil stars. Everything the Valori had built over thousands of years was being destroyed. Fen sat next to Kessa. Tears ran down his feathered face. "Do you think anyone will come?" he whispered. Kessa held his hand. "I do not know, child, but we must hope." Far across the galaxy on a small blue planet called Earth, The signal arrived. It was late at night in Seoul. Dr. Woo Jin was sleeping in his chair at the Deep Space Monitoring Station. His coffee had gone cold hours ago. The screens around him showed nothing but empty space, as they had for years. Then an alarm screamed. Woo Jin jumped awake, knocking his coffee to the floor. He stared at the screen. Numbers and symbols filled the display. A signal. A real signal from deep space. His hands were shaking as he translated it. The message was simple, mathematical, universal. "We are dying. We have no weapons. We cannot fight. Anyone who hears this, please help us. Please." Woo Jin's heart pounded in his chest. In 30 years of searching, humanity had never found proof of alien life. Now, in one moment, everything had changed. He picked up the phone and called his commander. Within 1 hour, the message reached the highest levels of the United Earth Council. Within 2 hours, it was on the desk of Admiral Tae-hyun, commander of the United Earth Defense Fleet. Tae-hyun was a tall man with gray hair and cold eyes. He had fought in 3 wars on Earth before humanity reached the stars. He had seen death. He had caused death. He understood violence in ways most people could not. He read the translated message 3 times. He looked at the star charts. He calculated the distance. Then he stood up and walked to the window of his office. Outside, the city of Busan glittered under the night sky. Millions of people living their lives unaware that somewhere in the universe, an entire species was begging for help. Tae-hyun made his decision. He picked up his communicator and called the Fleet Command Center. "This is Admiral Tae-hyun. I am declaring a Priority 1 mobilization. All warships are to prepare for immediate departure. We have received a distress signal from beyond our borders." The officer on the other end sounded confused. "Sir, a distress signal? From who?" "From someone who needs us." Tae-hyun's voice was hard as iron. "Prepare the war fleet. We are going to answer." Across Earth, alarms rang on every military base. Soldiers woke from their beds. Pilots ran to their ships. Engineers powered up engines that had been sleeping for years. The humans were coming, and they were bringing everything they had. 2 weeks had passed since the Valori fled their burning world. 2 weeks of running. 2 weeks of dying. The refugee convoy had started with 40 ships. Now only 19 remained. The Mokrai hunters followed them like shadows, picking off the slowest vessels one by one. They were not trying to kill quickly. They were playing. High Speaker Oren stood before the survivors in the cargo hold of the lead ship. His golden feathers had lost their shine. His voice had lost its strength. "My people," he said softly, "I must tell you the truth. No one is coming to save us. We must accept this. We must find a place to hide, a forgotten corner of the galaxy where the Mokrai will not look." Elder Kessa sat in the corner, listening. She had sent the signal. She had hoped. Now that hope was dying like everything else. A young mother held her child close. An old male wept silently. The Valori had always believed the universe was kind. They had always believed that good things happened to good people. Now, they knew the truth. The universe did not care. On the bridge of his massive warship, Warlord Grath watched the Valori convoy on his screen. He was the supreme commander of the Mokrai invasion force. His body was huge, covered in scars from 100 battles. His forearms were thick with muscle. His red eyes glowed with cruel pleasure. "They run so slowly," he said to his second-in-command, Vex. "It is almost sad." Vex stood beside him, smaller but equally cruel. "Should we finish them now, my lord?" "No. Where is the joy in that?" Grath smiled, showing teeth like broken glass. "Disable the engines of the rear ship. Let them drift. Let them watch their friends fly away. Then destroy them, one by one. I want them to feel every moment of their death." The Mokrai hunters moved forward. Their weapons fired. A Valori ship at the back of the convoy went dark, its engines dead. The other ships could not stop. If they stopped, they would all die. On the lead ship, Fen watched the disabled vessel fall behind on his scanner. He could hear the screaming on the communication channel, families crying, children begging for help. Then the Mokrai weapons fired again, and the screaming stopped. Fen's hands shook on the controls. He was young. He had never seen death before 2 weeks ago. Now he saw it every day. "I cannot do this anymore," he whispered. "I cannot keep watching." Elder Kessa put a gentle hand on his shoulder. "You must be strong, young one, for those who still live." "Why?" Fen's voice cracked. "Why should I be strong? No one is coming. Your signal failed. We are alone." Kessa had no answer. She could only hold him as he cried. Then something changed. Fen's scanner began to beep. He wiped his eyes and looked at the screen. His heart stopped. "Elder, there is something on the sensors." "Mokrai?" "No, something else. Many contacts. Hundreds." Fen's voice dropped to a whisper. "No, thousands." High Speaker Orin rushed to the bridge. "What is happening?" Fen pointed at the screen with a trembling hand. "Something is coming out of hyperspace. Something big." The sky tore open. Ships poured out of the wound in space. Not elegant ships, not graceful. These were ugly things, built from black metal and sharp angles. They bristled with weapons. They moved in perfect formation, like predators hunting together. More and more came. Carriers the size of mountains, destroyers covered in armor, fighters swarming like angry insects. The human fleet filled the space between the stars. On the lead Valori ship, no one spoke. No one moved. They had never seen anything like this. These ships were not built for exploration. They were not built for trade. They were built for one purpose only: war. A voice crackled over the communication channel. It spoke in mathematical language first, then shifted to broken Valori. "Valori convoy, this is Dr. Wu Jin of the United Earth Defense Fleet. We received your distress signal. We have come to help. Move behind our formation. We will protect you." Orin grabbed the communicator. "Who are you? What species?" "We are humans. From a planet called Earth. We are here to fight for you." Elder Kessa stared at the massive warships on the screen. Her heart filled with a strange mix of hope and terror. She had sent the signal hoping for scholars, diplomats, healers. Instead, she had summoned something else entirely. She had summoned monsters. The Mokrai hunters stopped their pursuit. Warlord Grath stared at his screen in confusion. "What is this? Another species?" He laughed, a deep rumbling sound. "Excellent! More slaves for the Empire. More worlds to conquer." Commander Vex studied the human ships carefully. Something about them made her uncomfortable. "My lord, perhaps we should wait. Learn more about these creatures before we attack." "Wait? I am Warlord Grath. I do not wait." He stood from his throne and pointed at the human fleet. "All ships forward. Destroy these newcomers. Show them what happens to those who challenge the Mokrai." The Mokrai armada surged forward, 200 warships, hungry for blood. On the bridge of the human flagship, Iron Will, Admiral Tae Hyun watched them come. His face showed no emotion. Beside him, Lieutenant Hana Sung reported the enemy movements. "Enemy fleet advancing, Admiral. 200 ships. They are not slowing down. They are not trying to communicate." "Of course not," Tae-hyun said calmly. "They think we are prey. They think we will run or surrender." "Will we?" Tae-hyun almost smiled. Almost. "Humanity has never surrendered to anyone. We did not cross the galaxy to start now." He pressed a button on his command chair. His voice echoed through every human ship in the fleet. "All vessels, this is Admiral Tae-hyun. The enemy is approaching. They have been killing innocent people. They have been enjoying it. Today that ends. Today, they learn what humans are." He paused. His cold eyes watched the Mokrai ships grow closer on the screen. All weapons free. Show no mercy. They gave none. Neither will we. The human fleet moved forward like a single creature. Fighters launched from carrier bays. Destroyers formed into attack lines. The flagship Iron Will led the charge, its massive guns turning toward the enemy. On his warship, Grath watched the humans approach. They were not running. They were not begging. They were attacking. For the first time in many years, Warlord Grath felt something strange in his chest, something he had almost forgotten: fear. Aboard the Valori refugee ship, Fen watched the two fleets rushing toward each other. He looked at Elder Kessa. "What have you summoned?" he asked. Kessa watched the human warships, dark and terrible against the stars. She remembered her prayer. "Anyone who hears this, please help us." Anyone had answered. "I do not know," she whispered. "I do not know what they are." The first weapons fired. The battle began. And the universe would never be the same. Captain Unipark strapped herself into her fighter. Around her, the carrier Avalanche hummed with power. 2,000 pilots were doing the same thing. 2,000 humans preparing to fight and die for strangers they had never met. Una was 32 years old. She had black hair cut short and eyes that never showed fear. She had been flying since she was 16, fighting since she was 20. War was her home. Her squadron leader's voice crackled in her helmet. "All fighters, launch in 30 seconds. Stay tight, stay fast. Kill anything that isn't human or Valori." Una closed her eyes for a moment. She thought of her mother back on Earth, her little brother, the small house in Busan where she grew up. She might never see them again. Then she opened her eyes and grabbed her controls. "Let's fly," she whispered. The fighters launched into space like a swarm of angry wasps. Una pushed her ship forward, feeling the engines roar beneath her. Ahead, the Mokrai fleet was closing fast. The Mokrai fired first. Hundreds of energy beams cut through space, aiming at the human ships. It was the same attack that had broken a dozen species before. It was the attack that always worked. It did not work on humans. The human ships had shields. Layers of them. The Mokrai weapons hit the shields and exploded in bright flashes. The human fleet kept coming. Not one ship fell. Not one ship slowed down. On his warship, Warlord Grath stared at his screen in disbelief. "Impossible. Our weapons, they did nothing." Commander Vex's voice was tight with worry. "My lord, these creatures, their technology—" "Fire again! All ships, fire everything!" The Mokrai weapons fired again, and again. The human shields flickered but held, and now the humans were close enough to fire back. Admiral Tae-Hyun sat calmly on the bridge of the Iron Will. Around him, officers shouted orders and reports. But his voice was quiet when he spoke. "Target their engine sections first, then weapons, then life support. Lieutenant Hana, coordinate with all destroyers. I want their fleet unable to move before we finish them." Hana Sung nodded sharply. "Yes, Admiral." The human ships opened fire. Mokrai warships exploded. 1, then 5, then 20. The human weapons cut through Mokrai armor like it was paper. The Mokrai had never faced technology like this. They had never faced tactics like this. They had never faced enemies who did not run. Captain Una led her squadron into the heart of the enemy formation. Mokrai fighters came to meet them. They were bigger than human fighters, stronger, more heavily armed. It did not matter. Human pilots had trained their whole lives for moments like this. They knew how to fight in ways the Mokrai could not understand. They used their smaller size to dodge and weave. They worked together in perfect teams. They took risks that would be suicide for any other species. Una's fingers danced across her controls. She destroyed one enemy fighter, then another. A Mokrai ship appeared behind her, weapons charging. Before it could fire, her wingman destroyed it. "Thanks, Jinsu," she said over the comm. You owe me a drink when we get home, Jinsu replied. On the Valori refugee ship, High Speaker Orin watched the battle in complete shock. He had never seen violence like this. The Valori had no word for what was happening. It was beautiful. It was terrible. It was beyond anything he could understand. Elder Kessa stood beside him, her old eyes fixed on the screen. They fight like they were born for it, she whispered. How? Orin asked. How can any species be like this? Dr. Wu Jin's voice came over the communication channel. He was still aboard the Iron Will, watching the same battle. High Speaker, I know this is frightening for your people, but please understand, we are trying to save you. By killing? There was a pause. When Wu Jin spoke again, his voice was sad. Yes, that is what we are. That is what we do. We are not proud of it, but we are very, very good at it. On the Iron Will, Lieutenant Hana Sung reported to Admiral Tae Hyun. Admiral, we have disabled 40% of enemy ships. They are trying to regroup. Don't let them. Tae Hyun's eyes were cold as winter. Press forward. Every species we have ever met gave up war long ago. They think it is primitive, uncivilized. They do not understand that we never stopped. We never evolved past violence. We just learned to control it. He looked at the burning Mokrai ships on his screen. And now we will use it to protect the weak. Send in the boarding teams. Across the battlefield, human dropships launched toward the largest Mokrai vessels. Sergeant Day Q led the assault team heading for Grath's flagship. He was a big man, built like a mountain, with scars on his face and hands that had broken many bones. His soldiers called him the Wall because nothing ever got past him. Listen up, he said to his team as their ship approached the enemy vessel. Mokrai are big. They have 4 arms. They are strong. But they have never fought humans before. They do not know what we can do. Show them. The dropship crashed through the hull of Grath's flagship. Day Q was the first one out, his rifle already firing. Mokrai warriors rushed to stop them. They were massive, towering over the humans. Their armor was thick, their weapons were heavy, but the humans moved like water. They flowed around the Mokrai attacks. They struck from unexpected angles. They fought with a speed and madness that the Mokrai had never seen. Daekyu broke a Mokrai warrior's leg with a single kick. He shot another in the throat. A third one grabbed him with 2 arms, trying to crush him. Daekyu head-butted the creature so hard its helmet cracked, then threw it into a wall. "Keep moving!" he shouted. "Find their warlord!" On the bridge of his flagship, Grath watched his empire crumble. His fleet was being destroyed. His warriors were being killed on his own ship. For the first time in his long, violent life, he did not know what to do. "What are these things?" he screamed. "What kind of creatures fight like this?" Commander Vex was already running for an escape pod. "They are monsters, my lord. We must retreat." "I am Warlord Grath. I do not retreat." The door to the bridge exploded inward. Sergeant Daekyu walked through the smoke, his armor covered in blood that was not his own. Behind him, his soldiers spread out, weapons ready. Grath drew his sword, a massive blade made for his 4 arms. "Come then, little creature, fight me yourself." Daekyu did not hesitate. He dropped his rifle and pulled out his own blade. It looked tiny compared to Grath's weapon. But Daekyu had been fighting since before he could read. He had killed his first enemy at 15. He was not afraid. The fight lasted 30 seconds. Grath was strong, Grath was fast. But Daekyu was smarter. He cut the tendons in Grath's arms. He broke his knees. He put the warlord on the ground and held the blade to his throat. "Yield," Daekyu said. Grath stared up at the human with something like wonder. "What? What are you?" "I am Sergeant Daekyu of the United Earth Marine Corps." Daekyu pressed the blade harder against Grath's neck. "And you are my prisoner." Outside, the battle was ending. Commander Vex fled with the few surviving Mokrai ships. The rest were burning wreckage drifting through space. The human fleet stood victorious, barely damaged. On the Valori refugee ship, Fen watched the destruction with wide eyes. He was shaking. He could not stop shaking. "They won," he said. "They actually won." Elder Kessa nodded slowly, but there was no joy in her eyes, only a deep, ancient fear. "Yes, young one. They won." She looked at the human warships floating among the burning Mokrai fleet. "Now we must ask ourselves, what have we woken up?" Elder Kessa stepped onto the human flagship, Iron Will, for the first time. Her heart was beating so fast she thought it might break through her chest. Behind her, High Speaker Orin walked in silence. 2 human soldiers escorted them through the gray metal corridors. Everything was hard. Everything was cold. There were no paintings on the walls, no flowers, no soft colors, just metal, wires, and weapons. The Valori built their ships to feel like homes. The humans built their ships to kill. Kessa saw human soldiers everywhere. They stood straight. They moved quickly. Their eyes followed the Valori guests with curiosity, but no warmth. These were not scholars or artists. These were warriors, every single one. They reached the command center. Admiral Tae Hyun stood waiting for them. He was tall, with gray hair and a face that looked like it was carved from stone. He did not smile when he greeted them. His eyes were the coldest Kessa had ever seen. "High Speaker Orin, Elder Kessa." His voice was flat. "Welcome aboard." Orin bowed his head in the Valori way. "Admiral Tae Hyun, we owe you our lives. Our entire species owes you its survival. We do not know how to thank you." Tae Hyun looked confused by these words. "Thank us. You sent a distress signal. We answered. That is all." "But why?" Orin asked. The question had been burning inside him since the humans arrived. "We have nothing to offer you. We cannot repay this debt. We are a broken people with no home. Why did you come?" The Admiral was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that Kessa would never forget. "You asked for help. We came." He said it like it was the most obvious thing in the universe, like crossing the galaxy to fight and die for strangers was normal. Like there was no other choice a person could make. Dr. Wu Jin joined them a few minutes later. He was different from the soldiers, softer, kinder. He smiled when he met the Valori leaders, and his eyes were warm. "I know this must be very strange for you," he said gently. "Humans are not like other species you may have met. We have a violent history, a bloody past. We are not proud of what we have done to each other." Orin tilted his head. "What do you mean?" Wu Jin sighed. "Our species spent thousands of years killing itself. Wars, genocides, endless fighting over land, resources, ideas. We nearly destroyed our own planet more than once. We are not a peaceful people. We have tried to be. But violence is in our nature." Kessa felt a chill run through her feathers. "Then why? If you are so violent, why help us?" Wu Jin smiled sadly. "Because we remember what it is like to be helpless. We remember what it is like when no one comes to save you. Our ancestors suffered in ways that would make your hearts break. We promised ourselves that if we ever found someone in need, we would do what no one did for us. We would come." In the prison section of the Iron Will, Warlord Grath sat in a cell made of unbreakable glass. His 4 arms were bound. His armor was gone. He looked smaller now, weaker, but his red eyes still burned with anger. Admiral Tae Hyun came to speak with him alone. He stood outside the cell, hands behind his back, face empty of emotion. "You wanted to see me," Tae Hyun said. Grath laughed, a bitter sound. "I wanted to understand. My people have conquered 100 worlds. We have broken 1,000 species. No one has ever fought us like you did. No one has ever come to die for strangers." "We did not come to die," We came to win. But why? Grath pressed his face against the glass. What are you? You are small. You are weak. Your bodies are soft, but you fight like demons. You take wounds that would kill my warriors and keep standing. You do not run. You do not beg. You do not make sense. Tae-hyun was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was different, softer, almost human. My grandfather was a farmer. When I was young, he told me a story. During a great war on our world, his village was attacked. The enemy killed everyone, men, women, children. My grandfather hid in a hole and watched his family die. He was 7 years old. Grath said nothing. No one came to save them. No one cared. They were just poor farmers in a forgotten place. My grandfather survived. He grew up. He had children. He told me that story every year on the same day, and he always ended it the same way. Tae-hyun's cold eyes met Grath's burning ones. He said, "If you ever have the power to help someone who cannot help themselves, you must do it. You must be the one who comes. Because if you are not, then you are no different from the ones who killed us." Grath stared at the human for a long moment. Then he laughed again, but this time there was no anger in it, only something like respect. "You are insane," he said. "All of you. Your entire species is insane." "Perhaps," Tae-hyun agreed, "but we are here, and you are in that cell. So perhaps insanity works." Later that day, the human intelligence officers shared what they had learned from captured Mokrai data. Lieutenant Hana Sung delivered the report to Admiral Tae-hyun, Dr. Woo Jin, and the Valori leaders. "The fleet we destroyed was a scouting force," she said. Her face was grim. "A small part of the Mokrai Empire's full military power." Oren's feathers went pale. "How small?" "Less than 1%. Hana pulled up a star chart on the screen. It showed the Mokrai Empire stretching across a quarter of the galaxy. "They have 10,000 warships, maybe more. When they learn what happened here, they will send everything to destroy us." The room was silent. Kessa felt her hope crumbling again. They had won one battle, but the war had just begun. "What do we do?" Oren whispered. Admiral Tae-hyun looked at the map. His face showed no fear, no doubt. Only cold calculation. "We prepare, we build, we grow stronger." He turned to face the Valori leader. "High Speaker, your people have technology we do not. Your ships are faster, your computers are smarter. If we combine your knowledge with our weapons, we can create something new, something the Mokrai have never seen." Oren hesitated. "You want us to, become like you? To learn war? I want you to survive." Tae-hyun's voice was hard but not unkind. "You can keep your peace. You can keep your art and your kindness. But you must also learn to fight. Or the next time, there will be no one left to save." That night, Kessa could not sleep. She walked through the corridors of the Iron Will, her mind full of troubled thoughts. She passed a window and stopped. Outside, human and Valori ships floated together in the darkness. Captain Unipark found her there. The pilot's uniform was dirty. She looked tired, but she smiled when she saw the elder. "Cannot sleep?" Una asked. Kessa shook her head. "I am afraid. I am afraid of what we must become." Una leaned against the window beside her. "Can I tell you something? I am afraid too. Every time I fly into battle, I am afraid. But I do it anyway." "Why?" Una pulled out a small photograph from her pocket. It showed a family, an old woman, a young man, a small house with flowers in the garden. "My family. Back on Earth. They are waiting for me." Una looked at the photo with soft eyes. "Every time I fight, I think about them. I think about all the families on Earth who do not know about this war, who are just living their lives. I fight so they can keep doing that. She looked at Kessa with sudden intensity. Your people had families too, homes, lives. The Mokrai took all of that. Do you not want to make sure they can never take from anyone again? Kessa looked at the photograph, at the flowers, at the peaceful home so far away. Yes, she said quietly. Yes, I do. Yuna smiled and put the photo away. Then we will teach you, and together we will make sure no one ever has to send a signal like yours again. 6 months had passed since the first battle, 6 months of building, training, and waiting for the storm. It came on a cold morning in space. The Mokrai Grand Armada dropped out of hyperspace like a plague of metal locusts. 10,000 warships, the largest military force the Empire had ever gathered. At the front flew the World Breaker, a ship so massive it blocked out stars. Commander Vex stood on its bridge, her red eyes fixed on the human Valori fleet. Today we end this, she said. Today we erase the memory of our defeat. But the humans had not been sleeping. Admiral Tae-hyun looked at the enemy armada on his screen. He felt no fear. He had been preparing for this moment since the day he first read the Valori distress signal. Every weapon had been checked. Every soldier had been trained. Every plan had been made. And they had something new. Launch the hybrid fleet, he ordered. From the carriers came ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Valori designs rebuilt with human weapons. Elegant curves covered in deadly armor. Fast, smart, and lethal. They flew in perfect formation, crewed by mixed teams of humans and Valori working together. Lieutenant Hana Sung commanded one of these new vessels, the Dawn's Edge. Beside her stood Scout Fen, who had trained for 6 months to become a warrior. His feathers were no longer blue with fear. They were dark with determination. Today we fight for our homes, Hana said over the communication channel. For the ones we lost, for the ones still waiting. Give them everything you have. Captain Yuna Park led the fighter squadrons from the carrier Avalanche. Her pilots were a mix of humans and Valori now. They had trained together, eaten together, laughed and cried together. They were no longer two species. They were one force. Stay close, follow your training, trust your wingmates, she said. And let's show these Mokrai what happens when you hurt our friends. The two fleets rushed toward each other. The Mokrai expected the same battle as before. They expected to overwhelm with numbers. They expected the defenders to break. They were wrong. The human Valori forces hit them like a hammer. The hybrid ships were faster than anything the Mokrai had seen. Valori intelligence systems predicted enemy movements before they happened. Human weapons tore through Mokrai armor. The two species fought together in perfect unity. On the World Breaker, Commander Vex watched her fleet fracture, ships exploding, formations collapsing, chaos everywhere. This is impossible, she hissed. How did they grow so strong so fast? In his cell on the Iron Will, Warlord Grath was listening to the battle through his guards' communication devices. He laughed quietly. I warned you, Vex, he said to no one. I told you to leave. You should have listened. The battle raged for hours. Thousands of ships fought in the darkness between stars. The sky burned with explosions. Wreckage drifted in clouds thick enough to block sensors. Captain Yuna led her squadron deep into enemy territory. They destroyed supply ships, communication relays, and command vessels. For every human or Valori that fell, 10 Mokrai ships died. But the World Breaker remained. Its weapons were devastating. Its shields were massive. It sat in the center of the Mokrai fleet like an evil heart, directing the battle. Admiral Tae-hyun knew what had to be done. Sergeant Dae-kyu, he said into his communicator, you know your mission. Dae-kyu was already in a dropship heading toward the World Breaker. His team was small, 20 soldiers. They all knew they might not come back. They went anyway. We know, Admiral. Disable the weapons. Hold until the reactors overload. Dae-kyu's voice was calm, steady. "We will get it done." "Sergeant, Day-Q, thank you." Day-Q smiled. "Just make sure you win, sir. Make this worth it." The dropship crashed through the World Breaker's hull. Day-Q led his team into the heart of the beast. Mokrai warriors waited for them, hundreds of them, the biggest, strongest fighters the Empire had. It did not matter. Day-Q fought like a storm. His soldiers followed him without fear. They pushed through corridors filled with enemies. They took wounds that would kill normal people and kept moving. They were humans. They did not stop. They reached the weapon control room. Day-Q looked at his team. Only 8 were still standing. All of them were wounded. "Hold this position," he said. "No matter what comes through that door, you hold." The Mokrai came. Wave after wave. Day-Q and his soldiers held the line. They fought hand-to-hand when their guns ran empty. They used broken pieces of metal as weapons. They used their fists, their teeth. Day-Q killed 17 Mokrai warriors with a broken rifle and his bare hands. His armor was shattered. His body was broken, but he stood in front of that door and did not move. On the bridge of the World Breaker, Commander Vex felt the ship shake. Alarms screamed. Systems failed one by one. "No," she whispered. "No, this cannot be happening." The reactors began to overload. The weapon systems went dark. The massive ship started to tear itself apart from the inside. Vex ran for the escape pods. She did not make it. The World Breaker exploded in a flash of light so bright it looked like a new star being born. The shockwaves spread across the battlefield, knocking ships aside like toys. Day-Q felt the heat coming. He thought of his mother, his father, the small apartment in Daegu where he grew up. He closed his eyes. "For those who come after," he said. Then there was light. The Mokrai Grand Armada broke. Without the World Breaker, without Vex, they had no central command. Their formations collapsed. Their ships scattered. The human Valori forces swept through them without mercy. By the time the battle ended, 7,000 Mokrai ships were destroyed. The rest fled into the darkness of space. The Mokrai Empire sent a message the next day. They wanted peace. It was the first time in their entire history they had ever asked to stop fighting. Admiral Tae-hyun accepted. 1 year later, the Valori had a new home. The United Earth Coalition had given them a planet in a quiet corner of the galaxy. A beautiful world with blue skies and green forests. A place to rebuild. The dedication ceremony was held under a warm sun. Thousands of Valori stood together, their feathers bright again, their eyes full of hope. Human soldiers stood among them, not as protectors now, as friends. High Speaker Orin addressed the crowd. His golden feathers shone in the light. 1 year ago, we sent a signal into the darkness. We expected nothing. We hoped for anything. We were afraid of what might answer. He looked at Admiral Tae-hyun standing beside him. What answered was beyond anything we could have imagined. Not gods, not monsters, just humans, broken, violent, kind, and loyal humans. He bowed his head. They came for us. Strangers across the stars. They bled for us. They died for us. We called them the wrong species, but perhaps we called exactly the right one. The crowd cheered. Human and Valori voices mixed together in a sound that had never existed before, the sound of 2 species becoming one family. Elder Kessa did not attend the ceremony. She was too old for crowds now, but she sat on a hill overlooking the new city, watching through her window. In the park below, human and Valori children played together. They chased each other through the grass, laughing in languages that mixed and blended into something new. A little Valori girl with purple feathers was teaching a human boy how to fly a kite. He was not very good. They both laughed when it crashed. Kessa smiled. Her old eyes filled with tears. She opened her journal and began to write. When the ships first came, I was afraid. I thought we had summoned demons, monsters who knew only violence. I was wrong. Humans are violent, yes. They are broken in ways we cannot understand. Their history is filled with horrors that would drive any sane species to despair. But they are also something else, something rare, something precious. They are the ones who come. When the universe is cold and dark, when hope has died, when everyone else has turned away, humans come. Not because it is easy, not because they will gain something. They come because someone asked, because someone needed them, because they remember what it is like to be alone and afraid. We sent our signal hoping for gods. We got something better. We got family. Strange, terrifying, beautiful family. And I would not trade them for anything in the stars. Kessa closed her journal. She looked out at the children playing below, at the new city rising behind them, at the human and Valori ships flying together in the blue sky above. She was old, she was tired, but for the first time in many years, she was not afraid. The universe was still dark. It was still cold. There were still monsters out there waiting in the void. But now, the darkness had something to fear. Because if anyone ever sent another signal, another cry for help into the endless night, the humans would answer, and they would bring everything they had.